it will push you to a limit where you never thought your body would be able to go. Um, and Best Ranger definitely reinforced that too. Training that it was we were doing some insane 4 day workouts, and it was just insane. It was your whole day. We were just doing physical activity. Anyway, so in Ranger School, I before I went, you have to do essentially an assessment. You have to do a bunch of them. And one of my last assessments, I had to do a 12-mile road march, as most um, candidates have to. And I had just got a new pair of boots that I thought were perfect size for my feet. They were minimalist. This was definitely during the big minimalist, craze where you want the lightest boot. And in
Yep.
my mind, I was like, oh, well, I'll swim in these boots because they're lighter, and then my heavier boots. But they were too short for my feet. And so I was toe jamming like the whole rough march. My
That's the
big
worst.
toes were just,
Yep.
and I got done and I barely passed the road march. Took my boots off, and my toes were just red and beat.
Blisters, the whole nine.
Right, like, well, they just like my toenails were just getting pounded. And so I went off to Ranger School, and my toenails started to die on those two big toes, and I started to lose them. And I get through banning phase, and then I go off to mountains, and I'm in mountain phase, and it was right after um, my evaluation, my go no go, essentially. And I had gotten a good feeling about it. Like, I had passed, and the guy had kind of given me like the whole, you did well, like you're gonna go and move on. And I still had four days left of like the FTX phase, and we went back for like a 12 to 24 hour refit. And when I went there, I went to the medical station. I was like, look, can you do anything for these toenails that are falling off? And she's like, yeah, I got you, no problem. And so I lay down, and I'm exhausted. It's the morning, and you get very little sleep, obviously, in Ranger School. And I wake up, and there's blood like everywhere. And she had numbed up my toes, and she is digging with a cuticle file. And if you're cringy, just stop listening right
Oh
now. But
my
she's
god.
digging under the toenails, the ones
No.
that were growing underneath the dead toenails too. So she was
Mm.
ripping off 2 sets. And I was just like, what are you doing? She's like, I have to remove them like this, or they're going to grow up like all funky and weird. And and I was like, oh, okay, because I'm there to shut up and color, really. Like, you don't push back. And that's cool. And so she goes, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. I'll bandage them, and I'll give you some concentration. It'll feel like you just clipped your toenails a little bit too short. And I'll tell you, man, that numbness wore off as I was walking towards my planning bays. And that was the most excruciating pain. And so we went to Mission that day because we were going back out into our FTX.
Right.
And I look at the RI, which is a ranger instructor, and I'm like, hey, so I just got my toenails removed. I can barely walk right now. I've got a 60-pound ruck on my back with gear and ammo and all this other crap. We're about to go out on a mission where we're going to walk in the woods. And I was like, can I get like 12 hours just like rest and then come and meet you guys? He's like, well, you can LOA, which is lack of motive, or LOM, lack of motivation, which recycles you. You just do the phase all over again. And I was like, no, I've got my go. I'm good. Like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I've just got to run through it
Soldier
4 days.
through.
Right. It was so bad that every time I lifted up my foot, the weight of my boot hurt on my toe.
Ugh.
And so they fly us out to our landing zone, and I get off the Chinook, and I'm walking into the woods. And of course, every probably quarter mile, I stub my toe on the stump, or I hit a rock with my foot, and it just, after about 3 hours of just excruciating pain in my toes, my body just shut down my whole feeling in my feet. Like, my body just adapted. It was just like, well, this isn't serving us. And it was probably one of the most painful, but one of the most life-changing moments of like realization that mental capacity can overcome almost any body ailment that like, our minds are phenomenal,
Hell yeah.
phenomenal things. And if we really do figure out a way to harness and can tell our minds with our body connection, really, like, we have these two systems that
That was the
work
mind over matter
together.
thing, right?
It is. It's a body mind connection that you can go, okay, this isn't serving me. I need to shut this down right now. And your mind just goes, okay, let's do